Somebody save me. I need someone just you want to save me. Just save me. Da 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 da. Dun dun dun. Look, up in the sky. It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's a plane. It's a Superman. Or is it?
It's me, Jay.
No. Oh, Jay, you're here. And I'm here to talk to you of our part 2 of our section on Superman. We're going to look at the first episode of Smallville, which I've seen. I own all 10 seasons of. And I guess you want to talk about the and how I've been a huge fan of this show, and I think just because when the poster came out, because this came out when I was 13,
gotcha,
and I never really watched it. It was like one of those shows I never watched on TV, but like I would flip through channels and find, like when I was 13 years old, and I was like, how is this related to Super? Like I watched one episode.
Gotcha.
And I was like, how the hell is this related to Superman? And it wasn't until like I actually bought them on DVD that's like, oh.
Gotcha. Yeah, when did you get them on DVD?
I got them on DVD probably maybe 5 years ago.
Okay, so not too long.
Because like the show was still going. Because the show I got them on DVD. The show was still going on. Maybe not 5, because I think the show ended in 2011.
Okay.
So like I think I've watched a couple episodes on the CW. Right. But and I got kind of sucked into it just because if you remember in the poster of Smallville, and even in the cover of Smallville, he's tied to the Scarecrow. Or it's kind of like the poster looked like he was tied to a thing which had a lot of people thinking it's a big Christ allegory kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Because of the kind of him being like on the cross, but he's yeah, that kind of thing. Which I can kind of see that, but I'm not going to like get into any of that kind of stuff. But I liked it, and I got to and like I kind of fell in love with the show because the show was so like, it was kind of like weird because what they used was meteors as sort of the meteor shower to do like the
introduce new stuff to the show.
The show, yeah, that kind of thing. Or somebody says it was like Buffy the don't use. Okay, I think the
audio glitch.
Sorry about that, guys. But where was I?
You're talking about. I think you were saying it's sort of like Buffy. We're sort of like a villain of the week type thing.
Buffy was villain. It was Dawson's Creek. It was kind of the cross between Buffy the Vampire Slayer's motif and Dawson's Creek, or Dawson's Creek meets Superman kind of thing. Kind of the teen drama.
And just for our viewers at home, what's Dawson? I guess, and for me, what's Dawson's Creek?
Dawson's Creek was sort of like kind of the teen TV show that was right between Beverly Hills 90210 and the kind of the OC and One Tree Hill shows that I talked about.
Gotcha.
It was like I didn't really watch any of it. I knew of it, but kind of.
Okay.
But like this one was more of kind of, and it was interesting because I think what they pitched the idea to Warner Brothers they were going to call it Gotham. And it was going to be about a young Bruce Wayne becoming Batman. Right. And lo and behold, like 2014, they pitched that same idea. Not the same idea, but Gotham was about young Jim Gordon. Right. And young Bruce Wayne. But Bruce Wayne was sort of the young Bruce Wayne becoming Batman in the shadows of Jim Gordon.
Gotcha. I think you remember because you watched that too. I think that was more about the villains too.
The villains and kind of like how Jim becomes sort of the police, starring Ben McKenzie from OC, so there's a connection there too. So, but I looked at but this show I kind of watched. I didn't watch it. I mean, I really just kind of picked it up with the DVDs and got really into it. I actually talked I was supposed to meet Michael Rosenbaum, who plays Lex Luthor,
Uh-huh.
but he had a basketball game the week that he had to cancel Fanboy. But I talked to Lionel, the guy that played Lionel Luthor.
Right.
So that was kind of cool about Superman, you know.
Gotcha.
But so Smallville pretty much it stars I guess Smallville is pretty much Superman becoming it's Clark Kent becoming Superman. It's sort of before the tights. He kind of has to earn his tights if
Gotcha.
you kind of think about it.
It's sort of like where he's like figuring out his powers.
Figuring out his powers, kind of the same way as like mutants and stuff like that.
Right.
The show was actually done. It was created by Alfred Goff, who is best known for doing. He's actually right now recently working on Tim Burton's The Addams Family spinoff, Wednesday.
Yeah, I've heard that got positive feedback.
And he's done things like he's worked on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2.
Nice.
Let's see. Our list of works. He wrote the story for Lethal Weapon 4.
Okay.
He wrote Mad Men. He wrote the screenplay for Furby Fully Loaded. The Mummy, The Tomb of the Dragon Empire. But he's also done. He did Aquaman, which is kind of a spin-off sequel series. Not a sequel series, but a spin-off show about Aquaman.
Oh, okay. So the show, not the movie.
The show, not the movie.
Okay.
He's done.
Didn't know they had an Aquaman show.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. It was a canceled too soon show actually.
Okay.
That was supposed to be a kind of, and what ended up happening was Justin Hartley, who played Aquaman, or Arthur Curry, because it was just a pilot. The show ended up becoming not a show, and ended up becoming. He ended up leaving that show and becoming Smallville's Green Arrow.
Okay.
Later in the series, you know.
Gotcha.
But he's done that. Let's see. The other thing it starred Tom Welling.
Is that the Superman?
That's plays Superman.
Okay.
He was a male model that ended up getting the show. He showed up in Cheaper by the Dozen.
Okay.
And he played the older son in Cheaper by the Dozen and Cheaper by the Dozen 2. He was in Undeclared. He was in The Fog.
The Stephen King movie?
The Stephen King movie, yeah. Parkland. I mean, he hasn't done a lot of stuff. He's been in Draft Day with what's his name? Kevin Costner.
Okay.
And so, I mean, but I think it's one of those things where I think he's owned. Like the guy that plays Lex Luthor, Michael Rosenbaum, has a podcast, and and he talks about, like they're real good friends.
Gotcha.
Speaking of Michael Rosenbaum, plays Lex Luthor. Michael Rosenbaum is best known for his. He's done a lot of voice work. He played, if you remember, in Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. I said that he was the voice of one of the clowns.
Gotcha.
The Joker's gang.
Yeah, one of his crew.
But he did Kicking It Old School with Jamie Kennedy.
Okay.
He was in Racing Stripes. Bringing Down the House. He was in he was a sports announcer for Rocket Power. He was in Urban Legend. I think that was his first film, but he's done. He was the voice of the Flash in a lot of the Justice League.
Okay, nice.
Shows.
Okay.
He's also done Guardians of the Galaxy and episodes of Robot Chicken, but he has a podcast called Inside of You. Shout out! And it's I like his stuff that he's done. And he was supposed to come to Fanboy, but I didn't get to Yeah, the basketball thing.
Gotcha.
That's cool. But he plays Lex Luthor, and I think he plays one of the best Lex Luthors. But I think that's because you spend time with him. Because I think this show, as Clark becomes Superman, goes through adolescence and becomes Superman, Lex Luthor goes from becoming, you actually like Lex Luthor, and he ends up kind of
nerd.
Not a nerd. He doesn't becoming a nerd. He becomes the villain.
Well, he's like a evil scientist, money man.
Money man. So he's a nerd. Nerd. And then you had Chloe Sullivan, played by Allison Mack, who was supposed to be in I think kind of made up for the show.
Okay. As
sort of a kind of a precursor to Lois Lane.
What was her character's name?
Chloe Sullivan.
Oh, so not. I was thinking of who's the girl that can turn into water.
Oh, that's Alex Mack.
The
actress is named Allison Mack.
Gotcha. Okay.
And she's been in Wilford. She voiced Power Girl in the Superman, Batman, Public Enemies animated movie. She was in episodes of Seventh Heaven, Honey, We Shrunk Our Kids, Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, Camp Nowhere, and Police Academy 5 in 1989. But she's gotten some trouble for having, she started in her personal life. She ended up being part of a cult.
Okay.
Or something. I don't know exactly, but she plays. She plays Chloe Sullivan, who is basically later in the show. She's Lois Lane's cousin. So
gotcha.
That's kind of how they're kind of connected. Then you had Kristen Kirk, who played Lana Lang. Lana Lang, if you remember, is Superman's first girlfriend.
Yeah.
And she was in movies. She was Chun-Li in Street Fighters: The Legend of Chun-Li.
Okay.
She was in Eurotrip. She was in the Canceled Too Soon TV series. Well, no, she was in the Beauty and the Beast TV series.
I did not know that existed.
For CW. She was in episodes of Robot Chicken, episodes of Chuck, and I think she was in Reacher. The Amazon Prime television show about Jack Reacher.
Is that like the generic sort of like spy guy who's going to save the world?
Does that look familiar?
I think I've seen trailers from.
Yeah. She's recently been in that, but she plays Lana Lang but I think in this show Lana Lang is more because if you remember in Superman when we reviewed Superman the animated series,
right? Yeah, that character shows up for
was just
a
sort
little
of
bit.
Hello, Clark. How are you? I'm your best friend from Smallville.
Yeah.
Well, good luck in Smallville.
Good luck with your powers.
Good luck with your powers. Bye bye. But there's more of a dynamic. It's his first love, and you kind of. It's his, it's Clark's first love.
Yeah, so I'm guessing this series sort of like the 10 minutes the animated series gives it, but stretched out for
10 seasons.
Yeah. So they really compact a lot of stuff into those.
No, they come back, but
I
like what I like about the show is I like how you get to see them grow, especially the Lex and it's more the Lex and Clark
dynamic.
Yeah. Then you had John Glover.
Okay.
And if you don't know that name, you might know the voice. He voiced the Riddler.
Gotcha.
And Batman the animated series. He was also Daniel Clamp in Gremlins 2.
Okay. Oh, the CEO guy.
CEO.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was also in Scrooged. He was always the plant guy who killed Uma Thurman in Batman and Robin.
Okay.
Remember, he's like, "You look great." He gets kissed.
I can't remember the Robin in detail.
He looks like.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's been in that film. He was in Lucifer. He was in Shazam as Mr. Savannah.
Okay.
He's done a lot of work with DC stuff. But he's He's been in. I mean, he was also in Superman the animated series as the Riddler. So he's
Okay.
voiced the Riddler
Gotcha.
in the Batman the
Multiple.
animated series.
Nice.
So
Okay.
multiple things.
Yeah.
So I kind of think it's kind of nice when you see like actors. And I met him at the Comic-Con, and I was like, I loved you as Lionel Luthor, and he really like kind of thanked me and said, you know, it was great to be in that show. And
Yeah.
you know, if I had more time, I would have been like gotten more into detail. But you only get so much time. But he's great. He plays Lionel Luthor, who's made up for the show,
Right.
and he's Lex Luthor's father, and you kind of can see, and I'll show you kind of how, you know, he's very much like, he shows a lot of discipline to Lex,
Right.
you know. Then you had let's see, John Schneider, who was Bo Duke in The Dukes of Hazzard. He was also in films such as, let's see, you might know him from, he's done a lot of little stuff. He's been in Frontiers, or I don't know what's it called, Poinsettias for Christmas, for Lifetime.
Okay.
He's been in, let's see, he was in let's see, Return of the Killer Sewers, which I was thinking, Sewers. He was in episodes of Glee, Phineas and Ferb, Desperate Housewives, 90210, CSI Miami, King of the Hill, Touched by an Angel. He's been in every. I mean, he's most known for Bo Duke in Dukes of Hazzard.
Okay.
And I got to meet him.
Like the original Dukes of Hazzard?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
but
I'll always know him as, since I'm watching the show, I know him as Pa Kent.
Gotcha.
And what I like about him in this show is, like, they're kind of, they're not, you know, like, if you remember in the Superman, in a lot of the Superman shows, it's always like Grandpa Pa Kent and Ma Kent, you know, and in this one they're kind of like 30s, 40s, kind of, they're kind of like parents.
Gotcha. Instead of
more than like grandparents than it is in like the thing. Then you had Martha Kent, played by Annette O'Toole.
Okay.
You may know Annette O'Toole from, she's got a tie-in with Superman. In Superman 3, she played Lana Lang in the Christopher Reeves movies.
Okay.
And then she was also in 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy. She's been recently in The Punisher, the Netflix Disney Plus television show.
Gotcha.
She was in an episode of Lie to Me, which I like. She was in an episode of Boy Meets World, which I reviewed the pilot for. She's been in Andre, about the girl with the seal. She was Beverly in It, the 1990s It.
Oh, okay, with the one with
Tim Curry?
Tim Curry.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably where you might.
Gotcha.
She was in, but that's her. She plays, and I like how they play it sort of like a parent. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen sort of the pilot.
Right.
But I like how they're a really good. They've got a good relationship.
Right.
With each other. And then you had a character called Whitney Fordman, who was played by Eric Johnson. Whitney Fordman is basically Lana Lang's first boyfriend that Clark kind of wants to like steal away. But he was in movies such as 50 Shades Darker. He was in episodes of Vikings. He was in I mean, he's kind of had a little role for what he's done. He was in the Hallmark movie Oh Christmas Tree and episodes of Rookie Blue, but he's kind of a character that was sort of kind of a someone for Clark to kind of compete with in the first couple seasons.
Gotcha.
And I think that's the cast for at least the pilot.
Gotcha.
And then there's Then there's his friend Sam, or Pete Ross. Peter Ross, does that name sound familiar?
No, it does not.
I think he's a character but he's played by Sam Jones III, and he was in Smallville, or this show. He was in episodes of ER, Bones, episodes of Seventh Heaven, and The Nightmare Room by R.L. Stine.
Spooky.
To name a few. He was in episodes of CSI and Saved by the Bell, the new class.
Okay.
So that's the cast for at least
the main cast for the pilot.
We'll get into the episode next. Before we go, Jay, what's your? I guess you haven't seen. What are your expectations?
I guess I've never seen this. I guess looking at this, and I guess my expectations are a bit low. I don't think this is what the genre I normally watch, but I'm excited to see how it goes.
I'll ask if you're going to be pleasantly surprised, or like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
We will find out.
Alrighty, it's coming soon. So we just got out of we just finished the pilot for Smallville.
Right.
I've seen it before, but I guess I'll start by saying, Jay, what was your thoughts on this pilot?
I guess it was decent. It sort of explained how it got to they sort of crashed down in Kansas.
Right,
his parents found him, and
yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, I think it felt like something that I was like, I think looking at your viewpoint, like, I kind of go, okay, no, this kind of, after watching the show, I'm like, or after knowing the series, I'm like, okay, so this is gonna set up this is gonna set up this, is gonna set up this. I kind of, what I liked about it is like, it didn't just say, okay, Clark was. I think what I liked about this pilot was, I liked that Clark, like the way Clark comes to, I like how just the idea of Kal-El Clark coming down, through the meteor shower was clever.
Yeah.
It was clever, and then I liked how, and I thought the whole idea of the kryptonite being sort of, being kind of the flavor of the week. Well, it'll not flavor of the, but like the MacGuffin of the week kind of thing. But we'll go into the plot. So the plot basically is, so Smallville. So we actually open up with Lex Luthor and his father, Lionel Luthor, played by John Glover. And Lionel Luthor is actually just made for the show.
Okay.
And so he's like, and we kind of can see how Lex is sort of basically been told by his father, like, Luthors aren't cowards. They don't need to get, that kind of.
Oh, right, because he was afraid of the helicopter or something.
Helicopter ride. And what I've noticed watching it for this time around is, I noticed that you can kind of tell that Lionel really puts a lot of real pressure on Lex.
Right.
And then what I liked about it was too is that when so they're traveling to meet two men that own a farm, and he's going to cut them in a deal about the like fertilizing the.
Yeah, because they run like some sort of, well, they are doing a lot of stuff. Like one part of it's like fertilizer production, right?
Yeah, something like that. And so so that's kind of going on.
Right.
Meanwhile, we're in Smallville, downtown Smallville, and we meet Martha Kent and Jonathan Kent.
Right.
And they're sitting at the kind of sitting in their car, and Martha's basically looking outside going, wouldn't it be great to have a kid of our own, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Jonathan's like, soon we will, because they need, want. And what I like about Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent in this iteration is that they're sort of young parents.
Right.
They're young. They're it's because if you watched in Superman the animated series or Superman the animated series, they were a little bit kind of elderly.
Right.
And this one, they're in their like 30s, and I think that they have a really good dynamic.
Yeah.
In this one.
Yeah, and then they sort of meet this like young girl, and they're out in the street, and the young girl sort of waves at her parents.
And that's Lana Lang.
Right, and then her parents explode.
Her parents explode. Well, a meteorite comes down, and I think the meteor is sort of like what makes Kal-El come to Smallville, and so the meteor comes and we see, pew, pew, and like. Meteorites and like what's happening and
right,
they're driving down and there's this. I mean, it's a for a really, I wouldn't say low budget, but for a decent budget for a TV show, it looks pretty damn good. I mean,
yeah. Well, I guess, do you remember when this came out?
This came out in 2001 to 2011.
Okay, it's 2001.
I mean,
yeah, you sort of recognize the CG. I mean, for the TV show.
For a TV show, it is a pilot, and so pilot, they're really crunched the budget and stuff like that. But I liked how I liked how we got to see kind of the blown, everything being blown up,
right?
Or like the meteor shower happening, and then we see the crying girl, and she's like, "Mama, Mama,"
right?
And so basically. As that's going on, they're driving to get away from the meteor shower, Martha and Jonathan. And as they're driving down the highway, she's like, "Look out, Jonathan!" And meteor's going down, in and out, down and out, down and down, and she
the truck flips over.
The truck flips over.
Right. And they sort of look over and they see a little baby feet.
Baby boy, baby feet. And I think that, like, I was listening to the commentary.
Yeah.
They were talking about how they were trying to get the kid to, like, get him to, they would feed him snacks, trying to get him to, like, do things. So, anyway, so they're like, "Oh, Jonathan," and he doesn't really do anything like to rescue them out of their thing.
No, they don't do the thing where like he picks up the truck or anything.
No, they just kind of crawl out.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Where did they come from?" Then they wrap them in a red cloth, like Superman. And then they're always asking him, where did he come from? And then fast forward to present day, or 2001.
Right. We also have this scene where Lex loses his hair.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Oh, I'm sorry. So what? And so basically, Lex is in the cornfield. The meteor shower comes.
Yeah, and he hears someone saying like, "Help me out in the cornfield."
Help me in the cornfield, and it's the guy that's going to be
the villain
of the show.
For this episode.
Of the episode, and he's on the
tied up in a
cornfield, and he's like, "Help me!" And it's kind of a cool scene or a cool shot because you can see the meteor going down, and the meteor hits kind of near little Lex, and little Lex kind of goes, "Whoa!"
Yeah, and he starts running.
And then what I like is, or what kind of really showed you kind of the impact of the character of Lionel is. You can see Lex Luthor kind of sitting in the fetal position with his hair kind of already blasted off. Which I don't know in the comics, how does he lose his hair?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
But I think it's just sort of like that's just how he loses his hair in the
I can't remember if it's like cancer
in this version. And so but there's this look of how because I was listening to the director's commentary before, and if I can remember, he said, "Oh my God!" Like there's that look on Lionel's face that just sort of shows you how he's going to treat his son how he sees his son for the rest of the show, or the rest of the series. So in a way, what I kind of like about this show about this episode is that Clark, it's really about three orphans, if you think about it. well, not three orphans, but the three. You got Lex, or you got Clark, who kind of, who basically, has no biological parents. You have Lionel or Lex, who basically fathers doesn't really, doesn't show him any love or compassion.
Right.
And then you have, Lana, who loses her parents through a meteor shower.
Right. And
that's kind of about them, sort of, when you think of as the series goes on.
Gotcha.
What was your... So anyway, let's go through the plot, and then we'll kind of give our kind of thoughts. So anyway, as that's happening, Lionel just gives him a look that's like... So where was it? Oh,
I think we just got done with all the meteor stuff, and then it sort of cuts to present day.
In present day, we see young Clark Kent, and he's reading up on who's the fastest guy in the world.
Yeah.
And kind of the world records.
All these like feats of strength and speed.
Feats of strength and speed, and you can see he can read fast because his eyes just go.
Right.
And we were kind of introduced to Clark as sort of a teenager, and I think he was like in his 20s, but
yeah, he doesn't look like a teenager.
Kids, I mean, he does, but I could probably say he's probably a senior. Maybe a freshman.
He's supposed to be a freshman.
I know, but like, but come on, it's Tom Welling. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, but so he's like, so he's basically like getting called downstairs, and he's looking at the permission slip, and
he's like, "Hey, Dad, I want to play football."
Well, it's kind of like, but what I like about it is it's just that kind of that feeling of like. I don't know. I like how he played it.
Yeah.
Where I felt like he played it like I could buy the fact that it would be telling your parents that you want to try out for something and kind of getting rejected.
Yeah.
Or the fear of getting rejected.
Because he doesn't want to be.
He doesn't want to get hurt or hurt anybody.
Yeah, and your dad's like, no, you'll kill everyone.
Kill everyone. And he's like, but Dad, I can kind of, and he's like, and Jonathan's very protective, but he's also very much like, I know that you've got great gifts, but, or, like you got good talent, but the football field isn't really where you should be. He kind of crushes his dreams. Like most fathers do. I'm just kidding. But so he's basically kind of talks about that. I like there's that line where he opens the refrigerator and he drinks the milk, which is out of like
a glass,
like a glass that you get from like the milkman,
like the 1950s,
like the 1950s. And he drinks the milk. He's like, "What do you? Do you drink the milk like you live on a farm? That kind of thing."
Right.
And then, so basically, we kind of see the dynamic between Clark. What do you think of the dynamic between Clark and his father, John? Or as you've seen it in the pilot?
I guess that makes sense for the show. It's sort of, it's trying to show Clark is like not Superman yet, so he's got all his sort of like angsty stuff.
Yeah. And I kind of liked how and I like that characteristic. As we go into the episode, and so he drinks his milk. And he eats his cereal, and he heads out. But no, he misses the bus. And what should Clark Kent do? A, tell his mom that he missed the bus. B, look down and run fast. Or C, say, screw this, I'm skipping school. The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is B. He runs real fast. And what I like about it is you can tell that Chloe Sullivan, who is a character made up for the, as I said, it's sort of made up for the show, and I think Pete Ross is I think he's a character in Superman.
Just looking, he shows up in some of the comics.
He does show up.
Yeah, he's actually in one of those. He was Lex Luthor's vice president.
Oh, really?
I think, yeah.
Wow. But they make a bet that he says Clark can't,
he's gonna miss the bus.
Because he's so slow. But then he looks down, he looks up, and goes, "Woo!"
He also gave him a skateboard, which I thought was funny.
Gave him a skateboard, yeah. Because it's
I
2000.
don't think we didn't get to see him ride it. He just is carrying
He's
it around.
He just goes, hey kids, I'm super cool. I'm a teen like you.
Right.
And so they get to, the bus comes in and it drops off Chloe and
Pete.
Sam and Pete.
Right.
Pete. And Chloe and Pete. And they're like, how'd you get here so fast? He's like, well, I just kind of ran.
Took a shortcut
through the cornfield. So when we kind of, so then we see Lana Lang, or Clark sees Lana Lang.
And goes over to talk to her.
Well, and he kind of goes up he goes up and talks to her, but he kind of, and there's this, and Pete and Chloe
have
a bet that says Clark can't make it 10 feet without falling over Lana Lang.
Right.
And so they go, I bet you $50 or something. I can't remember how much.
Like $5.
$5. And they put the $5 and you see him go 1, 2, 3. He drops and
we see she's wearing a mysterious green necklace. Right. I wonder what that is.
Well, she says it's. Well,
I don't think they ever actually say, but it's kryptonite.
It's kryptonite.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what I liked what they did with the show is that they made the kryptonite sort of the flavor of the week every week.
Yeah.
And so she drops the. So he picks up the. She helps him pick up his books and helps him up. And they have this nice meet cute moment. And I liked that you can kind of tell that Lana Lang is a really, I can see the precursor to Lois Lane through Lana Lang.
Right.
Which isn't really done well it's really sort of, hello, I'm Lana Lang. Hello, hey, Clark. Hey, Lana. That kind of thing in the animated show that we
because
kind of
they had
talked about.
5 minutes to explain.
Yeah,
all of this.
That's a long way. Yeah. But then she's dating a guy named Whitney who is did I tell you we already?
I can't remember if he went over Whitney's actor, but I think he probably did. But yeah, he's sort of like his. You did, because that's his like a romantic rival. You did mention that.
Rival, which is he's pretty much in pretty much all three. Kind of the Flash Thompson, if you were Spider-Man fans, right? Kind of thing. And he's kind of like, hey Clark, why are you talking to my girl?
You look like you're gonna throw up.
Yeah, you look like you're gonna throw up, which he actually says, and Clark says, well, I was just hanging out with Lana. And he's like, and you can kind of tell that I look at Clark looking at Lana as something that he can't really have. Yeah. Lana basically, so they walk off and Clark goes basically.
I think it sort of then does it cut to the football tryouts where he's like up in the bleachers.
And he's up in the bleachers and he's working on his homework.
And then he has a little like fantasy sequence where he's playing this football champion.
And what's the cool about the fantasy sequence, and it's I think everything because I think it's sort of like what every sort of kid kind of high school kid when he wants to try out, he does all these like he's running through the things and moving up all the tacklers and
jumps over
everything, and it's a pretty cool
spikes the football and explodes.
Yeah, it doesn't explode like a Michael Bay thing. It just
he pops the football.
Pops the ball, yeah. And Clark or Lana goes up to him and says, "Clark, I knew you could do it." And it's kind of that moment where he's like, I remember watching this with the commentary of the director and of directors, and they were talking about how they really wanted to get just sort of like want to do without the tights kind of, and I think I kind of like Clark's character in this version. I like how he's still trying to figure out teen angst and stuff like that. Right. So anyway, so Pete Ross kind of talks, or he kind of snaps him out. Yeah. Kind of snaps him out of.
Because he was actually trying out instead, because Clark didn't get his permission.
Clark didn't get his permission to try out, and he's like, "You look ridiculous," and Clark's kind of like, "You look ridiculous."
You look like a tackle dummy, I think.
Yeah, like a tackle dummy, and so he goes on to play or try out, and then basically we see. The next thing is Clark's walking home.
Yeah, and I think he's sort of waiting, looking over a bridge.
And this is sort of, and we see, and this is our kind of Clark and Lex sort of meet cute moment,
Right.
where Lex is driving recklessly on his
Cell phone.
not his cell phone, but his flip phone.
Right.
And he's text messaging, or he's making a call, and he's listening to music, and he's got the driver's glove, and he's in his little Porsche.
Right.
And the Porsche drives off and as it's driving,
I think it hits like a roll of barbed wire.
and there's a roll of barbed wire, and because there's like a truck that came by that like
it broke off,
the barbed wire, and then as the barbed wire is coming down, the car's going, it inflates
all the
tires pop and hits Clark head on.
Right.
And
they fly into
the river. And what I liked, and that was a really cool shot scene that I liked. And as they are river, Clark basically saves
Lex. He sort of rips off the top of the car.
And then we got to see, this is kind of his first moment to see his really super strength. And he rips off the top of his car, and we see Lex, or he saves Lex, and Lex is, he takes him out of the water. Don't die. And he coughs off all the water.
Right.
And
Lex is like, I thought I hit you.
And he's like,
if you did that, I'd be dead.
If I did, I'd be dead. And then he looks over to the bridge, and the bridge is completely out. And he's like, I thought you did. Yeah. And then we get to see Jonathan Kent, or the authorities show up and make sure they're all right. And Jonathan Kent shows up. And basically, I mean, I kind of noticed this, is that he basically tells Lex, like, he kind of, I think because Lionel Luthor is his father. I think he looks at Lex as like, Lex is going to be exactly like Lionel Luthor, which in a way he becomes. Right. But I think he sort of drops the, kind of perceives him that way. Right. And it's like, who's that maniac that hit you? And he's like, and Lex is like, that would be me. Yeah. And Lex says,
your son saved my life.
Your son saved my life, and
what can I do? And like, I think Jonathan's just like, just don't drive.
Just don't drive safer. Why don't you? And you can kind of see that. I think Lex. I think because Lex is Lionel's son, Jonathan just sort of thinks he's going to be a bad seed anyway. Right. Which, he does, but I think that's the tragic of Smallville.
This is another one where he's like, the police give him a little like red blanket.
Yeah, he gives him a red blanket.
Wonder that's foreshadowing.
Yeah, or something. Yeah. And so, and I like that moment because I felt like that was a pretty good, like, okay, we kind of understand, Lex Luthor kind of, Luthor's family's done something, right. Luthors aren't very appreciated. And then the next day, he's coming home. He's coming home from school. Right. Is it the truck?
Yeah. There's a truck.
So he sees a truck. I think it's like a red truck. And he sees with a little card and Lionel and then we kind of see Clark go talk to Martha about the car. Like, whose truck is that? And she's like, it's yours. And I can kind of see, and he's like, "Oh, really?" And he's really excited about it. Right. And then he's kind of bubble just pops because his father, or Jonathan, says,
"You can't keep it."
Is like, I don't, or Jonathan says, "You can't keep it." And he's like, "I know you want that car," and he's like, "Why don't I just take?" And he tries to confront, which I feel like he would. I feel like that's what any son would do. Right. is just, why don't you just keep the car? And he's like, well, let me tell you of why that car is.
Or like where the money came
where the
from.
money came from that car. And I can kind of see Lionel Luthor, or Lex Luthor, or not Luthor, Jonathan Kent kind of seeing kind of like my son, or not my son, just because, that he talks about how they cut him a deal about, which we saw in we saw a little bit of.
Right, just a tiny bit.
He talked about the two brothers that wanted to cut a deal with Lionel Luthor about their land, and how he basically turned on him.
Right.
And I like that idea because I look at it as Lex sort of, but I think Clark comes back for Lex as like he's not going to be like his father.
Right. You can't judge Lex for what Lionel did.
Exactly. And I kind of, and he's like going, I know you want it, but you can't have it. And it's like, and he gets, and as he's talking about this, his dad is putting wood in the wood chipper.
Yeah.
And he's like going, what does he say? I can't remember. He says something about like,
I just want to be normal, and then
no. He says like, I know you wanted it, son, but it's just what you want. Yeah, something like, I know you want it, son, but it's just you can't take it. It's not normal. And he's like, normal? You know what normal is? He turns off the shredder, or turns on the shredder, and then he takes. Let me show you what normal is. He takes his hand, like I'm doing right now. No, I'm not really doing it, but he's takes his hand and he says, "Here's what normal is," and he puts the shredder in his.
Puts his hand in the
shredder, and he says, and he's like, son, and it's like, and he's completely fine because he's the Man of Steel, and he's like, I'd give anything to be normal, and he walks away, and then this is where we kind of get the
big reveal.
So he's like, son, I want to show you something.
It's time.
And I'll let Jay kind of explain it to you, or what were your thoughts?
Yes. Or the thoughts.
What was your thoughts on? I guess what was your thoughts on, kind of that, the, kind of him reveal, not before we get to the reveal,
right?
But more of like how Clark, sort of, I think sees it. I believe Clark Kent as a teenager in this show.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
Gotcha.
And kind of how that feeling of you get a prize for it.
Yeah.
And he, and the fact that I like. What do you think of the whole like
wood chipper?
Kind of showing him his strength or his Man of Steelness.
I guess I wasn't too surprised. I was more surprised like the father freaked out because I figured they would have already known he was pretty much indestructible.
But I kind of thought that.
But I guess
too.
Maybe I don't know.
I don't think he'd probably do something that drastic as like,
right.
Hey,
shoot me.
Go ahead, take this. Yeah.
I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. It's not like taking a gun and going, hey son, shoot me. I'm the Man of Steel. I'll just put my hand in this wood chipper. It's like I give anything to be normal. So then they're up in the barn. And he's like going, and Clark and Jonathan's like, son, I need to tell you something.
You're an alien.
Well, it's like, he's like, no, what does he say?
He like hands him like a tablet. Like this is from your parents, and it has some like
parents, right.
Yeah.
And he's like, so you're telling me I'm coming from outer space? He's like, not exactly. You came from a spaceship.
And he's like, what do you have it hidden up in the attic? And he's like,
no, it's in the bar.
It's in the storm cellar.
It's storm cellar.
Right.
So they go to the storm cellar, and it's like, this is where we found you in the thing. What do you think of the spaceship?
I guess it wasn't too. It sort of looked. I mean, I guess it makes sense if it's like supposed to be like a crashed spaceship. It's sort of like all burnt looking, but it's not. It's not like all like futuristic, sparkly.
Futuristic or anything like that. Like I kind of.
It's not all chrome looking.
Yeah. And I did kind of like the spaceship kind of design, and then
I think Clark gets all mad. He's like, "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" And he does a super speed away.
And then he hangs out. And like I like
Clark graveyard.
But I think the graveyard really worked.
Yeah.
Because so Clark's hanging out in the graveyard, because I think what I liked what they did with the show is I think Clark, Lana, and Lex are all sort of going through something in the whole entire, or at least the first, first 4 seasons of it.
Right.
And Clark kind of is, and he's like, Lana shows up on a horse. But I guess since she lives on a farm, she's got a horse. But I'm like, she's on a horse, and she's like, Clark, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm standing next to a graveyard. Standing in a graveyard at night.
Sad.
And I'm sad. Or yeah, something like that. But you can.
He's being extra, teenagery.
Yeah. And so he's standing there, and he's like, I kind of believed it too. Right. Because I liked how he says, I've been standing here in a graveyard, and he talks about how Lionel, or how basically, where am I? Kind of basically, it's kind of where do I come from? How do I know? I'm not from around here, kind of thing. And we get, and this is a good moment because we kind of get to understand Lana Lang's parents, right? That we got to see blow up at the beginning of the movie.
But then she reveals that to Clark that her parents died.
Her parents died, but I like how she says, I want you to come and meet my parents. And I think it's kind of sweet the way she does it, because she's like, she says, this is Clark, and says, Dad wants to know, and the way she kind of talks to the afterlife isn't really, I mean, it's really sweet. It's, it could have been done for like, ha ha ha, aren't we, but it's a real nice moment. Yeah. And so she's like, this, and I like how she does kind of put in that, is she worried about a boy? Mom wants to know if you're worried about a girl, and Dad says, and she's like, and Dad wants to know if you're worried about a guy, and she's like, no, and he's like, oh, Dad has a sense, it's kind of you can tell that she kind of has that sense of humor, right? But I kind of liked what they did with, I did like that kind of scene because it was sort of a sweet kind of moment. Yeah. And then, and
they sort of bond there, and then they sort of like walk away from the graveyard, and then we see, I guess, one of, Lana's, is it the Whitney guy?
Whitney. Who
sort of sees them from a porch,
and he gets jealous because, of course,
right. And we're sort of, because I was a bit confused. Is that Lana's house? Or does he just live next to the graveyard? Or
I think there's like maybe, I don't know. I think he lives close. Like the graveyard's probably close to where they both. Maybe it's like, here's Lana's house, here's Clark's house, and the graveyard's right back. Or here's Lana's, Clark's, and the graveyard's right back there. Right. So they just kind of meet up. And so Whitney's kind of like looking at Clark. And
I think it's also where Clark asked her to the dance.
Yes, and
sort
she's
of
like,
awkward.
And awkwardly, and I think, but he does. I think you can kind of tell where he doesn't do it. He does it awkwardly, but he's sort of like, I can tell that he's a little meek in this.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good representation.
I mean, he's not. He doesn't come up aggressive like, "Hey, are you coming? Hey, are you coming? Are you coming to the dance?" And she's like, "Oh, well, I'm going with Whitney."
And then he's like, "Oh right, doe."
Oh yeah.
And sort of like slaps his head. And then like I think that was that whole scene.
And they have. So meanwhile, we see like we see the boy that was tied to who was the original Scarecrow. Right. He's in the school, and he sees this picture of these college kids. Or not college kids, these football players, right? And he breaks the glass, and basically he goes on a revenge mode to punish all the football players that did the Scarecrow to him. So he's kind of the villain of the week.
Yeah, and then he sort of goes on, and like we see him in like a auto garage, and he sort of hunts down one of his bullies.
And he's like, dude, that was just, we were just playing. It was only,
It's just a
15
prank.
It was a prank. And he's like, he doesn't say anything, but he just has that glower. And I mean, he's a pretty good villain, but I think it was just sort of like, he's just kind of there to just make sure that, like, okay, we do have kind of a person that Clark needs to beat up.
Right.
Person that Clark needs to beat up in the beginning, or in the at the kind of
right.
Because I think it's more like part one is more focused on just Clark's relationship.
Yeah, just
the characters,
introductions
and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know who Lana Lang was until I saw this show.
Gotcha.
I always just thought Lois Lane was like, oh, Clark's first, Clark.
Yeah.
So he does that, and then we get back to, I think it's the next day.
Yeah.
Clark goes to Lex's house.
He gives him the keys.
Gives him the key back. Now, when I listened to this they filmed the interior. The exterior of the thing is just the castle that they filmed.
Right.
But the interior is where they filmed the
X-Men
mansion.
Okay.
So if you can, it's a little bit different, but you can kind of. I think it's the same. Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
the same mansion. And so he's like going, hello. So Clark comes in. He's like, hello. Anybody home? And then he sees Clark, or he sees two people fencing.
Right.
And as they're fencing, he kind of what Clark, or he's fencing with, and then I think
Lex loses and he throws his sword.
Does he have to get hit in the?
No, just they just show him sort of getting stabbed.
Does he get tapped?
Yeah.
And
he chucks his weapon.
He chucks his weapon at the wall, and it's like right next to Clark's face.
Yeah.
And he's like, Clark, how are you doing? And he's like, oh, I saw the front door was open, so I decided to come in. It's like, oh, that's okay. Would you care for a drink? And he's like, he gets one of those Perrier things.
I missed the character's name that beat him, like the girl. I wonder if that's gonna be, because I remember in the animated show, he always has this martial arts expert lady as his assistant.
I think she's just because I don't think I ever saw her again in any of the.
Okay.
I think she's just there to be sort of be like his fencing partner.
Gotcha.
And so you can and he kind of. And I kind of like how Lionel or Lex basically says,
your dad doesn't like me.
Well, or Clark says, I can't take these keys, and I guess he says something like, your dad doesn't like me, and you can kind of tell that Lex is pretty much saying that I bet it's probably because I'm bald, or it's just because of my father, but because of my family's legacy,
right?
That and he's kind of like, look, I can change. But there's something about him, and Lex pretty much says, I bet it's because my father. It's because of my. Because of my upbringing, because you think that he says it in this way. Oh, so your father thinks the apple doesn't fall far from the tree,
right?
And Lex is kind of saying, is trying not to be. Basically, his father's not trying to be, or he's not going to try to, not the sins of the father is not going to affect the spawn,
right?
Kind of thing. And he's like, come on, keep,
Yeah, and then he tries to turn it back on Clark, what about you? Did you fall?
Did you fall from the tree?
What do you think about him?
What do you think about him? And did you fall far from the tree? And Clark is kind of like, I don't even know where I belong. I don't know where I belong.
Yeah, I don't think he just doesn't say anything.
He doesn't say anything. No, I'm just saying that's kind of how his reaction is. And you can and so they talk. there's a kind of a moment where Lex and Clark kind of have a moment where they kind of talk about it. He's like, do you know, and then Lex talks about how, you know, when I had a dream. I had a dream where I was. Do you ever believe
flying?
I was
Man
flying,
can fly, right?
Flying, and he says, you know, do you know? I bet you know what it's. I bet you've never seen see if a man can fly. So there's a lot of Superman references,
right?
That you can tell, and he's like, I don't know, Clark, or I don't. Clark says, I don't know, Lex, but I can't take the car. I can't take the key. I can't take this vehicle.
Right.
Anyway, so tell me, Jay, what was your thoughts on the dynamic between Lex and Clark?
I thought it was good. I thought, you know, they do.
Do you like this one better than any of the other ones?
I guess I'm always a fan of the animated portrayal series.
I kind of like the tragedy of this one, or like,
right?
Because you really like, especially right when it gets to season 7, and kind of the Clark and Lex, they're going to have to divorce. You know, that's just the way it works. But I think it makes it more tragic.
Gotcha.
Just because Michael Rosenbaum plays such a great Lex Luthor.
Right.
Don't you think?
No, yeah, he's good. He's good at being, you know, sort of like charming, but yet also sort of like, you know,
kind of conniving in a way. I mean, I like him as Lex. I do. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons. And I like Tom Welling as Clark because I think he doesn't play it as just a Boy Scout. He still plays. I mean, or at least from what you can tell from the pilot. Anyway.
I think maybe then they just have like a brief thing where his friends Pete and what's the other friends who's sort of like a reporter.
Oh, that's
they spot the first Scarecrow guy.
So then Pete and Chloe are basically
they're watching the mechanic get wheeled out in the gurney, like because he's dead, right?
I thought they're in their wall. Is it the?
Well, yeah. Then they show Clark the Wall of Weird after because they go back and they're like doing a report like he'd been in a coma for 12 years.
Oh, so they're doing the story. Basically, this is where we're getting because a lot of the Smallville shows do like Freak of the Week episodes.
Right.
This is the Freak of the Week moment.
Gotcha.
And they're basically talking about small or things that are happening, or they're looking at it through their video camera the pictures of the kid who was. How is he looking like he was?
He hasn't aged a day.
He hasn't aged a day in 15 years or 16 years or something.
It was 12 years.
12 years. Okay. Oh yeah, 12 years. And he's like, but he was spotted over here at the school.
Right.
And then Chloe's like, and Clark's like, well, what do you mean? This isn't. No, this is. I don't. This is not weird. And she's like, and Pete's like, you should tell her. You should tell him. Tell me what? Okay, Clark. I got to show you this thing. So she goes in, she opens the door, and it's the Wall of Weird, which is pretty much going to be, I think, a staple in the first 3 seasons.
Okay.
Because a lot of times in this show, Clark or the kryptonite is going to be sort of it's going to really change the villain of the week.
Right.
In most of these episodes, but the Wall of Weird is pretty much how every strange thing that's happened in Smallville since the meteor shower happened. So she's got like all these newspapers and like conspiracy threads, and there's a picture of little Lana who was on the cover of Time magazine and had like time in the like hard times in the heartland or something.
Right.
And Clark's like,
it's all my fault.
Lana, and it's all my fault. And I think what's interesting about this thing is that he basically has to spend time with because he hurt Lana Lang, or because he came during the meteor shower.
Yeah, he feels guilty.
Feels like he's responsible
right.
for all the strange things that are happening in Smallville.
Right.
So we kind of get, and that sort of builds, because I think Clark's relationship with Pete and
Is it Chloe?
Chloe and basically their relationship with kind of Clark. That's kind
It
of
feels somewhat like the dynamic in the Daily Planet with like Jimmy Olsen and
Lois Lane.
Lois Lane. Really.
Yeah. I think it is. That does make sense. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Until I started watching Superman the animated series. So anyway, so he goes.
I think next does he get jumped by the
he leaves
Whitney and them.
He leaves Lois Lane. He leaves then because that's happening in the school, right?
Yeah.
Where
I think
the
so.
wall of weird is at the school. Yeah.
I think so.
So he basically is leaving school, and then Whitney and the football team comes by and they grab Clark and they say, and Whitney's pissed because he's thinking like, you're hanging out with my woman, and
then like Clark I think looks like to sort of fight back, and then suddenly we see the necklace again.
The necklace, and the necklace glows green because it's dun 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 kryptonite, and Lana, and he's like, congratulations, Clark, you're this year's Scarecrow.
Right.
And then we see, so they put the
necklace
on him, and then they throw him in the back of a truck, and they drive off to the cornfield, strip him off of his boxers, and post them up as a Scarecrow.
Right.
And what did you think of the images of the Scarecrow, as Clark as the Scarecrow? I mean,
it's good. It's sort of blatant. He had a big S on his chest. It's sort of like there's Superman.
Right. And the fact that it was sort of like in the cornfield, and he's like shivering, and I like that look. I mean, that was kind of the thing that got me. That was one of the things that got me into Smallville.
Right.
Just it was sort of eye catching of seeing like
him sort of up on the post.
And, I mean, I know a lot of people say that there's a Christ allegory with Superman sometimes.
Yeah, I'd see that. Yeah,
and I could see that in that perspective. But I liked how he's on there, and he's shivering, and the green kryptonite's coming, and then you see little Tommy, what's his name?
I think Jeremy.
Yeah. So Jeremy comes over, is like, I know how this feels. They did this to me 13 years ago.
Like, I will get my revenge.
I'm going to go get my revenge. She's like, what are you going to do? Don't worry, Clark. They're not our friends. And he does make that kind of point.
Yeah, you'll be safer here.
You'll be safer here. And it's like, I think I like how there was sort of that backstory with
Jeremy.
With Jeremy being sort of, Clark is going to be, or that that I'm doing this for us, and that we are, and I've never had my first dance and that thing, and then he's like, Jeremy, wait, and he walks off, and then I guess Lex Luthor's driving along.
Happened to be standing at the right spot in the right cornfield.
Yeah, and he's like, Clark, what are you doing here? And he sees him there, and it's like he sees his friend, and Clark is like, and he's like, oh my God, Clark, what are you doing? And so he goes and he unties him to the Scarecrow, and he falls down, and of course the necklace drops, making him, because of course Superman is like, oh, kryptonite's off me. Good for me. Now I'm.
Yeah, and he just sort of immediately hops away.
He literally hops away. He's like, Clark, you need to see a doctor. And I like Lex picking up the kryptonite.
Right.
And that I like how there's sort of like, but he doesn't know what it is. And I think during the first season, he's trying to figure out what this kryptonite. He gets kind of interested in the kryptonite. So then he basically goes back
to the high school to confront
Jeremy. And Jeremy's going to turn on all the sprinklers.
Right, and electrocute everyone.
And he's like, Clark, and Jeremy's like, I'm going to do it. And Clark's like, I'm not going to let you hurt my friends. And he kind of says, Clark, these are your friends. They don't care about you. look what they did to you. And I think Clark is a better man, or has to take his boldness and
Right.
And so basically, Clark and Jeremy fight with the cars, all right?
Yeah, like Jeremy tries to shock him, and then
Shock.
he's able to throw him off, and then he gets in a car and rams him with a truck.
Right. And he rams him with a truck, and then the truck electrocutes or
Yeah, he runs Superman through a wall, over a water main, and then sort of electrocutes himself.
And
Right.
he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Clark Kent, and you're in Smallville."
Right.
And it's a great kind of moment. And
yeah, because now he doesn't remember anything.
Right.
And then, so he doesn't.
And then he goes into the dance,
No, I think he goes back to his house.
He goes back to his house.
Right.
And then as he's walking back, he sees all the trucks lined up.
Oh, right. Before he leaves, yeah, he does his prank,
trucks.
yeah.
And so he's just like, Whitney did this. If he's gonna tie me to a scarecrow, I'm gonna screw around with this truck. So he parks his trucks all the way, and he walks and he kind of sees he's done a good job, because I like the fact that in Smallville, or Clark has sort of that teenage, he's with great power comes great responsibility, but I'm too young, and
he doesn't have all the responsibility yet.
Well, he doesn't want I think he kind of wants just to kind of screw around with. I mean, what do you want to like?
Yeah, but he's Superman. He's not supposed to do that.
But I mean, he's also 17.
He doesn't look 17. He's supposed to be because he's supposed to be a freshman. What is that, 14?
He's supposed to be 14.
15?
Well, we're just going to look past
maybe 15. Yeah.
Well, 15, because I think he graduates in season 4. So
okay, because
let's say he's 15.
All right, but he's 30.
But he's 30. Yeah. Okay, it
works.
Jacked. Yeah. He got the Captain American steroids.
Right, the super soldier.
Super soldier. So anyway, he stacks all the cars, and then Whitney and they all come out, and there's like, "What the hell happened to my truck?" And the trucks are all lined up, are all stacked up.
Right.
And then what I liked is he goes into, so he's like, Lana and Whitney, or Whitney drops off Lana, and Clark's at the barn.
Right.
And he's kind of.
And they have a brief rekindling with his dad,
Oh yeah.
He's like, what does he say, like, "Thank you for being my dad," or something.
Yeah, thank you for finding me. And he says, "You didn't find me,
right,
Clark."
They repeat that sort of cheesy. You found us.
You found us, and I mean it's cheesy, but
no, but it's
But I think because it's done by John Schneider, it's not. And
yeah.
The way it's, it's not like, okay, it's not like really bad.
Yeah, I agree. It's cheesy, but doesn't mean it's not bad.
It's
wholesome.
Heart to it to it. So it's and I like Jonathan Kent. I think because well, let me go with him. I'm going to finish my thoughts, and then I'm going to go into more detail.
Yeah.
But so then he said, then he looks outside. He sees Lana Lang walking to her car, or walking back home, he comes in. He says, "Bye, Dad." He's in. He's looking through the. Basically,
he sort of flips on the radio too.
Radio tune, and then
he just turns around and Lana's there.
Lana's there, and it's like, "Why didn't you give me my dance?" And she's like, then they dance, and then, it's all in his head,
right?
And then, basically, Clark goes, "Thanks for the dance, Lana," and she turns around, and the end of episode. What do you think of this episode? I mean, as a fan of Superman, were you like, oh, this was really cheesy, or were you like, actually it wasn't that bad, or was it like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen?
I can sort of tell this is just not for me, I guess,
it's not
for the
you?
shoot. But yeah, I can see the appeal of
I can see I can kind of see what I like about. I mean, the pilot is a little bit. I like the pilot because I like the dynamic between Clark and Lex. That was really what got me. And I felt like watching it now, I felt like the teenage stuff was, okay, I can kind of, now, I mean, I wasn't sort of like, now looking at it, I was like, Lex, I like the Lex and Clark relationship more than I'm focused on the Lana.
Right.
I mean, because you kind of know that Lana and Clark are going to have to go their separate ways.
Right.
You know, which is kind of the way which we'll see goes into, you know, they don't kind of go like we're breaking up. It's more of a I can't go on. You know, it's
tragic.
It's more tragic than anything.
Gotcha.
But I like this episode. I like this episode because I think it just kind of explains everything. I think you see what we've got.
Right.
You know, or you see that, okay, there's potential here as a Clark.
Yeah.
You know, maybe, you know, once you get to season 5 and 10 when you get into it, but for a pilot episode, I'll give it a B.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think the Lex and Clark relationship makes this episode. I kind of feel like it's about the fathers, you know, kind of
right.
Lionel. I mean, I do kind of like the fact that it is Lionel and Jonathan's, you know, story as well as
right.
Clark and
how they shape their sons.
But, if you took out for me, if you just focused on that, I'd give it a 10. The teen stuff, you know, I'm a fan of that just because I did One Tree Hill and the OC stuff. So I'm going to be a little bit lenient and say I like this. I'll give it a 7, the teen stuff. But the Superman stuff is a decent 10. I mean,
gotcha.
What about you as a Superman? Did you like it, or were you just kind of like?
I guess I'm
as a pilot. I mean, it is a pilot. Would I say? Because, you know, a lot of people. I look at it too as give a show 4 episodes. If it doesn't catch you in 4 episodes, then give it up.
Right.
Would you say after watching this, you're like, I'll give it another 4 episodes?
I guess I personally want it, but I can see the appeal because it's sort of like, you know, really exploring like how does, you know, Superman get his like sort of like moral code from his upbringing with his father, and
I think it sort of asks that question too, where I think it asks that question as sort of like, you know, in Lex. I mean, I think what I do like about this show is I think Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum are perfect as Lex and Clark together.
Yeah.
Like, I can't see another Lex and Clark, you know, without Rosenbaum or Tom Welling. So, I mean, that's what draws me into this show.
Gotcha.
And, you know, and I think Lionel Luthor was a really good, excellent character.
No, I think that's a good idea to sort of, you know,
I mean,
contrast against how Clark is raised and show how Lex is raised. Yeah,
exactly. And
I think that makes sense.
So, I mean, I'll give it, as a fan, I'll give it maybe an 8.
Okay.
I mean, as a pilot, I'd be a little bit lower because I'm watching it now. I'm kind of more of like, it's kind of the mowing kind of thing where I feel like, okay, we got to get through all the Superman stuff. And then the teen drama stuff.
Right.
I'm kind of want more, but kind of you got to go through the tall grass before it.
Right.
But I'll give it an 8. For that, I liked it. Jay is kind of. I don't think. Came out lasted for 10 seasons, so
right.
He might. It may be the first episode first episode jitters, but
right.
He. But I give it an 8. So that's kind of my viewpoint on Smallville. I'm a fan. I hope you guys liked what you see here. Next, tell me what your thoughts were on Smallville. Were you a fan as I am, or were you not a fan? Or which one did you like better? Were you a fan of the animated series? If there's anything else you want me to comment on, please comment below. I'm Steve.
I'm Jay.
And look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's dun 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 Superman. Bye. And like and subscribe.